The call came at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. I remember the time because I was still at my desk, going over invoices for a construction project we were wrapping up in Phoenix. My reading glasses were sitting on top of a half-empty coffee cup. I was tired in that low-grade, bone-deep way you get when you've been managing people and problems for 23 years, and you've stopped expecting anything to surprise you. My phone buzzed, my brother-in-law's name on the screen. We weren't close. Never had been. He was my wife's younger brother by 4 years. The kind of guy who always seemed like he was about to say something important and then didn't. We'd been cordial at holidays. That was about it. So when I saw his name at almost midnight, my first thought was that something had happened to my wife. Accident. Hospital. I picked up. "I need you to listen to me," he said. His voice was strange, flat and rushed at the same time, like he was reading from a script he'd memorized, but still didn't believe. "I've been carrying this for 6 years and I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. I'm sorry for all of it." I set down my pen. "Slow down," I said. "What are you talking about?" There was a pause, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. "Your daughter," he said. "Hazel, she's not yours." I've thought a lot about what a man is supposed to do in a moment like that, whether he's supposed to go cold or go loud, whether something inside him is supposed to crack open or lock shut. I've read the accounts other men give of moments like this, the ones who post on forums at 2 a.m., the ones who write long emails to strangers asking if what they felt was normal. What I felt was nothing. For about 40 seconds, I felt absolutely nothing, like the sound had been turned off in the room. I could see the papers on my desk. I could see my own hand holding the phone. I could see the red numbers on the clock. Then it started. It started low in my chest, like something shifting that should not be shifting. And then it moved up. "Tell me everything," I said. "Right now." He did. 6 years ago, before Hazel was born, my wife had been seeing someone, a man she'd worked with at the architecture firm downtown, a project lead she'd been collaborating with on a downtown mixed-use development. My brother-in-law had found out by accident, the way people always find out about things they were never supposed to know. He'd borrowed my wife's laptop to print something at her parents' house one Thanksgiving. A message had been open. He'd seen enough. He'd confronted her. She'd cried. She'd begged him not to say anything. She told him it was already over, that she'd ended it, that she was going to fix things. She said telling me would destroy our family. She said she was pregnant with me, she insisted, with me, and that bringing this up now would only hurt everyone. He believed her, or he wanted to, or he was 24 and didn't know what to do with something that large. He kept the secret. Then Hazel was born, and somewhere around her 3rd birthday he started to see it. Something in her face, something that didn't quite line up. He never said a word. He pushed it down. He told himself he was imagining it. 6 years of imagining it. Until tonight, when he said he'd been at a family barbecue last weekend and had seen a photo on his girlfriend's phone, a photo of some mutual friends, and in the background, standing next to a woman he didn't recognize, was a man whose face made his stomach drop. The project lead. Older now, but unmistakable. And standing next to him was a little girl, with Hazel's eyes. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my desk until the sun came up. I didn't go upstairs. I didn't walk past our bedroom door. I just sat there and let the hours move. By morning, I had made exactly one decision. I was not going to do anything until I knew for certain. People blow up their lives on rumors, on drunk confessions from unreliable sources. My brother-in-law was not a liar, as far as I knew, but he was also someone who had sat on this for 6 years and was now, possibly, offloading his guilt onto me because he couldn't carry it anymore. I was not going to take a grenade and throw it at my family based on a story and a photo I hadn't even seen. I needed proof. I knew an attorney in town, a guy named Fletcher whom I'd hired years ago for a contract dispute. He had a list of people he worked with, investigators mostly, people who could find things out quietly. I called him at 8 in the morning. I told him I needed a paternity test done without alerting my wife. He didn't ask questions. He gave me a name. The investigator, a quiet man in his 50s who wore the same brown jacket every time I saw him, explained that for a legal DNA test I'd need my daughter's participation or a court order. But for personal confirmation, just to know, I could use a home collection, hair, cheek swab, the kind of thing you send to a lab and get results back in 5 to 7 business days. My daughter was 8 years old. She left hair on her pillowcase every morning. She left her hairbrush on the bathroom counter next to the sink. I told myself I was doing this for her, that if I was wrong, she never had to know, that if I was right, she deserved to have a father who knew the truth. I sent the kit in on a Thursday. During those 5 days I went to work. I came home. I ate dinner across the table from my wife and watched her talk about her projects, about the kitchen renovation she wanted to start in the spring, about whether Hazel should switch to a different swim coach. I watched her and I tried to find the lie in her face. I didn't find it. That was the thing that kept catching me off guard. She was exactly the same. The same way she'd been for 15 years of marriage. The same laugh, the same habit of checking her phone during commercials and then feeling guilty about it. The same way she tucked her feet under her when she sat on the couch. I had thought, somewhere in the back of my mind, that I would be able to see it now, that the truth would make her face go strange. It didn't, which was its own kind of horror. Hazel asked me on Friday night if I was okay. She was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. 3rd grade. Long division. She had her mother's dark hair and her mother's habit of chewing on her pencil when she was thinking hard. "You seem quiet," she said. The way kids say things like that, not as an observation but almost as an accusation. Like quietness is something you did to them on purpose. "Just tired, sweetheart," I said. She went back to her worksheet. I stood at the counter and looked at her for a long moment and thought, whatever the test says, she doesn't know any of this. Whatever the test says, she's been calling me dad for 8 years and none of that is her fault. I want to make that clear, because it matters. The results came back on a Wednesday. I was at the office when the email notification came through. I had asked them to send it to a personal account I'd made just for this. Not my regular email, not anything tied to our household. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 45 minutes before I could open it. The probability of paternity. %. I read it 3 times. Then I drove to Fletcher's office and sat across from him and told him what I knew and what I needed. He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. The hardest part was not what came next. The hardest part was the 2 weeks between that Wednesday and the moment I actually said something to my wife. 2 weeks of going home. 2 weeks of watching Hazel do her homework and eat her cereal and argue about whether she had to finish her broccoli. 2 weeks of lying in bed next to a woman I had loved for 15 years while my attorney built a case and an investigator quietly confirmed details. And I figured out what kind of man I wanted to be when this was over. I wanted to be the kind of man who didn't explode, who didn't scream, who didn't do something that would end up being the version of the story my daughter carried with her into adulthood. So I didn't. I waited. Fletcher told me I had grounds for annulment on the basis of fraud. He told me I had grounds for a civil suit against my wife for misrepresentation of paternity, depending on how we wanted to proceed. He told me that my name on the birth certificate, while meaningful for custody purposes, also meant I had parental rights I could pursue if I chose to. He walked me through every option with the same calm voice a doctor uses when he's telling you your options are limited but not zero. "What do you want the outcome to be?" he asked. I thought about it for a long time. "I want my daughter to still have a father," I said. "I just want the man who shares her DNA to know that he missed 8 years and that he missed them on purpose. And I want my wife to understand what she actually cost me." Fletcher nodded slowly. "We can work with that." I chose a Sunday. Hazel was at a birthday party. We had 4 hours. I came downstairs that morning after she left and my wife was in the kitchen in her robe, making coffee. She looked up when I walked in. Something in my face must have changed because hers changed too. Just slightly, just around the eyes, and she set the coffee pot down without pouring. "Sit down," I said. "You're scaring me." "I know. Sit down." She sat. I put the results on the table. I put the investigator's report next to it. I put the documentation of the affair. The communication records my investigator had been able to pull together, the timeline, the dates that lined up. Next to that, she looked at the papers. She didn't touch them. Then she looked at me. For a moment, I thought she was going to deny it, that she was going to pick up the papers and say there had been a mistake, that the test was wrong, that she didn't know what any of this was. I had prepared for that. I had an entire response ready. She didn't say any of that. What she said was, "How did you find out?" Which told me everything about what she'd been doing for the last 8 years. Not hoping it wasn't true. Not waiting to come clean. Wondering all this time how it was eventually going to unravel. "That doesn't matter," I said. "I need you to tell me who he is, his full name, and I need you to tell me if he knows." "He doesn't know," she said. "Is it? I never told him. Does he know Hazel exists?" Another pause. "No, then he's going to find out," I said. "Today, because I'm going to tell him." She started to cry. Not the guilty, apologetic kind of crying, the panicked kind, the kind that's about consequences, not remorse. "You can't do that," she said. "You'll destroy her life. She's 8 years old." "She's 8 years old and she deserves to know where she came from," I said. "That's my decision and it's already made. What we're here to talk about right now is what happens to us." I will not pretend that conversation was short. It wasn't. It ran through 3 cups of coffee, and most of those 4 hours in covered ground that I don't need to put into detail here. She told me she was sorry. I believe she was. She told me she'd panicked, that she'd been terrified, that she'd convinced herself it would never matter. I believe that too. People are very good at convincing themselves that the lie they need to tell is the one that won't cause any damage. What I told her was this: I was not going to fight her for custody because Hazel needed her mother, but I was going to remain in Hazel's life. I was going to pursue my parental rights through the courts, with my name already on the birth certificate, and I was going to be her father in every way I had been her father for the last 8 years. And I was going to contact Hazel's biological father and give him the choice to be present or absent, because that was his right, and also, honestly, because I wanted him to have to sit with the fact that he had a daughter he didn't know about, and that the reason he didn't know was that my wife had kept her from him too. Let him carry some of this. And the marriage? She asked. Done, I said. I've already talked to an attorney. We'll file after the holidays, so Hazel has one more normal Christmas. She nodded. She didn't fight me on that. The one thing she asked, the only thing she really asked for, sitting there with her coffee going cold, was that I not tell Hazel what her mother had done. That we find some way to explain it to her that didn't make her mother into a villain. I told her I'd think about it. I'm still thinking about it. I found him through the investigator. He was still in the city, still in architecture, had moved to a smaller firm after the downtown development project. Married. 2 kids of his own, both boys. I called him on a Monday morning. He didn't know my name. I told him who I was. I don't. He started. 15 years ago, you were working with a woman at Aldgate Architecture on the Meridian project downtown, I said. Do you remember her? A longer pause. What is this about? He said. This is about the fact that you have a daughter, I said. She's 8 years old. Her name is Hazel, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought she was mine. The silence that followed was the longest silence I've ever sat through on a telephone call. I could hear him breathing. I could hear faintly the sound of an office in the background, keyboards, someone's muffled conversation, the hum of a building going about its day. I didn't know, he finally said. I know you didn't. I'm not calling to accuse you. I'm calling because she exists and she deserves to have accurate information about where she came from, even if she's not ready for all of it yet. And because you deserve the choice to be part of her life or not. That's yours to make. Another long pause. Can I? His voice broke slightly. He cleared it. Can I have some time? You can have a week, I said. After that, the door stays open, but I'm not going to hold it for you. He called back in 4 days. The paperwork took 7 months. The annulment, the financial settlement, the custody arrangement, the parenting plan. 7 months of sitting across conference tables and signing things and driving home to a house that was now mine alone because my wife had moved into an apartment 20 minutes away. Hazel went back and forth. That part was hard in the way I don't have good words for. The way she got used to the routine eventually. The way kids adapt because they have no choice, and also because they're more resilient than we give them credit for. The way she would call me on the nights she wasn't with me and tell me small things. What she'd had for lunch, what the teacher had said, what her friend had done on the playground, as if she needed to keep me updated on the proof that she was okay. She is okay. I need you to know that. She doesn't know everything yet. She knows that her mom and dad don't live together anymore. She knows that there's a man she's been introduced to, carefully, slowly, over several months, who is a friend of the family and who is interested in being part of her life. She doesn't know yet what that means in the full sense. She will, eventually. We're working with a family therapist on how to have that conversation in a way that doesn't shatter her sense of who she is. She still calls me Dad. She called me Dad last Saturday when I picked her up from swim practice, and she was shivering in the parking lot with her hair wet, and she ran across the asphalt and said, Dad, I shaved 2 seconds off my butterfly. Did Mom tell you? And I said, she didn't? That's incredible. Get in the car before you freeze. And she climbed in and I turned the heat up, and for about 30 seconds, everything was just that. My brother-in-law and I have talked twice since that night. Not long conversations. He told me he was sorry. I told him I believed him and that I didn't know yet how I felt about the 6 years. He said that was fair. He seemed smaller than he used to. Like the secret had been the thing holding him up, and now that it was gone, he'd lost some structure. I'm not angry at him. I think I would have done something similar at 24, which is the most uncomfortable thought I've had through all of this. I think most of us at 24 would have taken the out she gave him and convinced ourselves it was kindness. The thing nobody tells you when something like this happens is how long it keeps happening. People talk about it like it's an event, the discovery, the confrontation, the divorce, like there's a beginning and an end, and you walk out the other side of it into whatever comes next. But it doesn't end. It reshapes. It becomes the background condition of your life, the thing that changed the shape of all the rooms you move through. You stop being someone it happened to and start being someone who carries it. And the weight changes, but it doesn't disappear. I'm 51 years old. I spent 23 years running a construction business and 15 years in a marriage I thought was real, and 8 years being a father I thought was biological. 2 of those 3 things turned out to be true. That's not nothing. I sold my stake in the business last year to my partner, a decision I'd been putting off for years that suddenly became simple once the other noise cleared. I travel more now. I'm learning, embarrassingly late, to cook actual meals instead of surviving on diner coffee and whatever's in the break room. I have a small house near the park where Hazel likes to go on the weekends when she's with me, and she has a room there with the exact comforter she picked out herself, purple with small white stars, and her butterfly ribbons pinned up on the board above her desk. The biological father comes to her swim meets now. He stands on the other side of the pool deck from me. We nod at each other. We have not become friends, and I don't expect we will. But he's there, and she knows he's there, and in another year or 2, when she's old enough to hold the whole truth without it crushing her, she'll have a father who showed up, and another man who made sure the door was open for him. I'm the one who made sure. I'm aware of how strange that is. I'm aware it says something about me that I couldn't quite let him be absent the way part of me wanted him to be. I keep coming back to what Hazel said at the kitchen table that night she caught me being quiet. You seem quiet. I was. I am sometimes still. But it's a different kind of quiet now. Not the kind where you're sitting with something you don't know how to survive. Just the kind where you've gotten to the other side of something, and you're still going. And that's enough, and you know it's enough. And sometimes in the mornings when you're making coffee and the light is coming in a certain way through the kitchen window, you feel it. You actually feel it.